but like, but
Really? But like what?
It's what a way to.
Hi everybody, how you doing?
Oh my goodness. Hi everyone.
Yeah.
This is
Hi,
your
everyone.
Friday Night Faction crew, or at least 2 out of the 3 of us. Minnie is currently preoccupied. He is doing the Gathering of Thy Magic tournaments right now.
Oh, is he out at some Walmart parking lot like he was last year doing the Magic together?
I think he upgraded to the Target parking lot at least.
Oh, well, moving on up. Good for you, Minnie.
Yes. So
it's probably for the better because all Minnie missed was this sort of why are we doing this Smackdown?
I mean, so before we get into all that, hi guys.
Hi everyone.
We're back once again, your Friday Night Faction crew, to review another weekly episode of the WWE Smacketh of Downs from Friday, January 19th, 2024. We're trying to be as enthused as possible because
We're trying to be excited. We're trying to not bring it down. We just got here. We're a minute in and we're already like, my God. But like, if you've been watching SmackDown the last few weeks and I was off for a while and I'm catching up and I haven't missed anything, we're coming up on the Rumble and SmackDown is just all over the place.
I think that's the best way to describe it.
I guess I looked at the internet a little bit, and of course it's polarized. There's some people saying, I can't wait, and some people who are way more pessimistic than us, going, what in the hell, burn it down, what's going on, sort of thing. I don't know who's in charge. I don't know what's happening. And we'll talk about the whole thing, but broadly going the whole, here's the 2 hours of the thing. I don't know, there was maybe 30 minutes of wrestling at the most, if that, and then 90 minutes of promos and soap opera stuff that some of it we just blatantly did not need. And even some of the matches we got weren't really matches. They were, I don't even want to say spot fests. They were there just
to propagate whatever we're getting at the Rumble.
Nothing was happening. And it was sort of like, hey, don't hurt yourself. Go out there, play a little. There's one match tonight that I was like, this is a lot of fun. This is great. Everything else, I was like, oh, what's happening? The women got screwed again. It was just such a downer. Ugh.
But yes, my name is Mikey. I should have...
Oh, we haven't even said our names. Sorry.
It's okay. I mean, at this point, we've been doing this since June, so at this point, everyone knows our beautiful faces. But I am Mikey. Joined with me this week is the Professor John himself. We are missing the Evan of Minis, as his government name is given it. He is currently in the Target parking lot doing the Gathering of Thy Magic cards.
Hey, you gotta make that money. Yeah, go ahead.
Listen, it's a way of life. Anybody who does card games for a living, they know they gotta invest in this.
I mean, if you're gonna pick a cult and you don't want to pick the pickleball one, you could pick the Magic the Gathering one, and you're probably gonna be okay.
I mean, that is totally fair. All right, Professor, we're gonna try to get through this together. Hold my hand. We're gonna go.
hands, buddy. All right, SmackDown from the January the 29th.
The 19th.
29th? 19th. Gosh, time is an illusion, folks. 19th. Okay, do we start at the beginning? Or do we just kind of... We used to have a rule. We had a rule here, if you've been following. Sorry, another tangent. If it was under 2 minis on the old school mini scale, but now we're on the empanada scale, which is sort of like going from miles to kilometers. Are we still rating this? Are we still reviewing this? Was it that low, you think?
Yeah, I don't think it was necessary. We'll talk about it, but I don't think it was... I think it was all over the place, but trust me, we have seen some really, really bad SmackDowns, lest we forget the summer of the Bloodline.
Oh yeah, the summer of Bloodline. Yeah, we're quite literally, there was no wrestling.
That was my bar, and we have not gotten to that level.
Yeah, so... I didn't do exact math on it, but we probably had about less than 35 minutes of wrestling in a 2-hour show on Friday. I tried to clock a few things. The women's match was 4 minutes at the most, with all the random what is happening in the ring promo right afterwards. fine, but yeah, you're right. Some of those bloodline things over the summer where it was like 15 minutes of wrestling and just blood.
Yeah, that is my bar, and we have yet to get back there, but we'll still critique because there's a lot of this was SmackDown's version of Promo Fest, like we talked about in the Dynamite reviews.
This was Promo Fest, yeah.
Some promos I enjoyed. Yeah, some promos I enjoyed better than others, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
The other rule here is that because WWE likes to do this, since the beginning of the new year, we are not going to include the recap videos that we get half the time. So, like, anytime they recap something, we're going to skip over that. We're only going to review anything backstage or in ring that happened, or video packages that aren't recaps.
Yeah, there was a good 20 minutes of recaps. There's a lot of recaps.
So I did not include that when we go over because, we're at this point. Someone made a good comparison on the internet wrestling community. If you're looking at like just WWE and AEW, WWE I feel like is geared towards the casual wrestling fans, whereas AEW is geared towards the more hardcore, like they know everything and anything, and that's like their bread and butter. WWE appeals to all the masses, so therefore I don't want to say it's watered down, but it appeals to the general masses. Whereas instead of
I would agree with you.
Specifically like wrestling hardcore nerds like us.
I think so, and I think even AEW they're trying to find that broad appeal. If you listen to Tony Khan's post now, Tony Khan's really talking about that's how good SmackDown was, folks. We're 6 minutes in, we're talking about another promotion, comparing them, by the way. But this is within context. Tony Khan is still talking about numbers on TBS and streaming numbers, this and this. So it's in Tony's head as far as who the broader audience is. We're not quite at the Monday Night Wars yet, but we're kind of amidst this weird situation where the rumors are that folks want to bail AEW. CM Punk sort of created this bridge to that now. And if you believe the internet, there's rumblings in both promotions. The grass is greener thing is going on. I think the hardcore ones are the folks watching TNA and Ring of Honor and, you and the Andrew Zollanders out there. Shout out to Andrew here at Biconics, the folks that are watching all the things we don't hear about or talk about. I think you're right, though. I think there's a sense that WWE is really building up to these premium live events and these big marquee things, this sort of big budget Hollywood style thing, if that makes, like, hey, if you're only going to watch 4 or 5 things a year, WWE is going to get you interested. So what they're banking on is, hey, I'll watch it a week before, or hey, I'll watch it a few times so I know their names. And this one, sadly, is a commercial 2 weeks away from the Rumble. It's just all this really felt like. The promos were kind of cardboard. Some of the performers, which we'll talk about, I felt like they didn't want to be there doing this. They just had that look on their face. They looked at the fans, they played to the fans, and they looked at the camera and talked in the mic, and it was like, I don't want to be here. So there's a few of those moments I felt like. I know Vince isn't there technically, but I feel like there was just meddling with the schedule. There was something going on. They were in their heads.
Yeah.
I touched on this briefly already. There were some strange misses and botches, which we don't see. During the trios match, there were 1 or 2 things that I was like, ooh, please don't get hurt. There was, in the women's match, there were a few moments where they were waiting. I'll say this. Randy Orton had a few moments where he was waiting for something to happen, and you just kind of saw him stuck in between waiting for this bit sort of thing, which is unfortunate. So it felt really off. And I feel like we've said that about SmackDown the last few times. Like, they're all in their heads for some reason, and I don't know why. Am I crazy? Am I off base? Am I kind of speaking to it?
No, and I think that's just the kind of thing, and this always happens every time we get closer to the Rumble, because Rumble, the main events are the men and the women's Rumble, because those determine like your number 1 contenders for WrestleMania matches, which is
it's called the Rumble. Yeah, right.
Now, prior to the Rumble that happened in 2022, I would say you can't necessarily mess with the Rumble. 2022, we found out how bad they can mess it up when we when we talked about it. But anywho,
Which one's the 2002 Rumble?
I believe 2022 was when the men's
Oh, 2022. I'm sorry.
the 2022 Rumble was boring because like the men's one wasn't bad, and then this was also, and then for the women's, Vince realized he didn't have enough women to have in it because of all the talent layoffs. So remember, that's the year that they brought in like Mickey James, who was an Impact at the time, and everything. I was just like, oops.
I remember we talked about that. Again, we're 10 minutes in, have not even talked about SmackDown yet. That's how good SmackDown was.
Let's just rip, let's rip the
January
Band-Aid
19th.
off. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just go into it. And
Go for it.
We'll go from there. So we begin, again, I'm not counting recaps. So the first thing that we see is Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso backstage, like freaking out about, what's happening. And Solo's just like, bro, I'm going to handle this tonight. And then we get into the longest segment of the night. So again, we get Bloodline kind of to start with. And it's not the last time we're going to see Bloodline because they're throughout the show with this one. Not as bad as the summer, but there was a lot of them this episode.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we don't even start with the match. We start with the longest segment of the evening where we have this WWE Undisputed Universal Championship contract signing for the Fatal 4-Way at the Royal Rumble to give the Spark Notes version of it, and then we can dive into the things we liked and really disliked. Nick Aldis, general manager of SmackDown, who is gorgeous, by the way.
He looks good in that suit.
Mickey James is a very lucky woman. That is her husband. But Nick Aldis is in the ring, and he basically sets the precedent that this is going to be a contract signing, and then one by one we get our participants. So AJ Styles, LA Knight, Randy Orton come out, and then Roman Reigns' music hits, but out comes Paul Heyman. So Paul Heyman basically says that Roman's not going to sign this contract, that he's not going to participate. Basically trying to do everything that Roman has been doing for the last 3 years, bullying the general managers, calling roughshod over SmackDown, doing whatever he wants. Nick Aldis decided to stand on business and not budge like he has been the last couple of weeks, where he basically tells Paul, that's fine, I have LA's, AJ's, and Randy's signature, so we'll just make this a triple threat for the vacant WWE Undisputed Universal Championship, which made me giggle. I was like, yes, Nick Aldis is a great addition to SmackDown as a general manager character, and he's already proving that he stands on business, as the kids say.
I love the black and white nature of what he's doing, and that speaks more businessy to me. If you're going to do it that way, you got to nail that every time. And I think other general managers have come close to that. It's just refreshing to see how point blank he is with them. I've talked about this before here. I kind of hate the contract signing thing. It's always dull, and I don't think the wrestlers like it. About halfway through this, they were trying to stay interested, but they checked out. And Randy Orton, who's too old for this, is just kind of like, why am I here?
Randy Orton was me during this whole entire thing.
He was just like, why are we doing that? Because, I get it, and he's been around forever, and he remembers a time where there wasn't this spectacle around this, and we're just kind of filling time to give the casual, oh, look who's here. That's just how it feels to me. There's probably different perspectives. You could have cut this in half and given 10 more minutes to the women, and we would have been fine. You could have actually used Damage Control and everyone else who was there,
right?
Instead of, we'll talk about that when we get there.
So that was we're not even done, because this is only like the first 10 minutes of this whole segment, and then the last like 7 of it, this is where it turns. So Paul Heyman comes down to the ring, basically calls Nick Aldis a little punk, and just like verbally tries to decimate him by talking down to him.
He has that knockoff suit line wearing your Paul Heyman knockoff suit. And I was like, he kind of looks better than you in that suit, Paul Heyman. I'm not going to lie.
So Paul Heyman continues to throw insults, and then LA Knight just cuts him off and tells him to shut up. Otherwise, he's going to cut bacon off of his back. I was like, damn.
Good line. Very good line.
That was good. That was good. And essentially what this turned into is that LA basically runs down Randy and AJ for them coming back after being away for months. And he's saying that this should have been a singles match. Oh, which I forgot to say. Paul Heyman backtracked. He's just like, this should have been a one-on-one match. And I was like, I looked at Paul Heyman. I paused my television. I broke the fourth wall in my own house, and I turned to the invisible camera, and I actually said, "What the hell?" Roman Reigns messed that up 2 weeks ago because it was originally going to be one-on-one. Roman Reigns decided to destroy all three opponents, and then Nick Aldis made it into a fatal four-way because Roman Reigns rested up. So I'm like, Paul Heyman, what you talking about, bro?
Yeah, I again, this is the sort of soap opera manipulation and gaslighting of each other thing, which I get. It's just used so much. It's like you said, come on.
So
I think there's a part of me, though. Sorry, not to cut you off. There's a part of me, though, that would have loved to see him just straight up make it for the vacant title, just to curveball everyone and just screw up the Roman Reigns 10,000 days as champion thing that we're doing, or whatever this is. Just be like, well, it's over. You vacated it because you didn't sign this contract. What a cool angle that would be to have to manage that. I think that would have been more fun than what we ended up kind of sort of getting.
Kind of. So LA runs down Randy Orton and AJ Styles. AJ Styles fires back. Again, this AJ Styles' character right now is the lone wolf. Like, this was his character in the TNA days where he don't need nobody. He can do everything by himself, which then prompts LA and AJ to brawl into the back. Nick Aldis is trying to break them up, sending security as everyone goes to the back. And then this turned into 50 Shades of Hey, man, because then Randy Orton just casually walks over, takes the tie, wraps it around his head, and pulls him close like a lover's embrace, and basically says, I need you to send a message to Roman Reigns. Doesn't matter where, doesn't matter when. I'm going to reintroduce the three most deadliest letters in all of professional sports entertainment, the RKO, and then just pats Paul Heyman on the head, which I was like, Randy was me this whole entire time. This Randy Orton is my favorite right now. He's just like, this is ridiculous, but I'm acknowledging it, and I'm just in for the fun. Like, when he came back on Monday Night Raw too, it was funny because, you know, everyone calls Rhea Ripley mommy, and the homo was, well, guess what? Rhea Daddy is back. I was like, I like this funny Randy Orton. I want to see more of this one. But that's how this 20-minute segment went.
20 minutes.
And I covered it in like 5.
20 minutes. It goes on and on and on and on and on. You did not need this big bloated opening segment. Other promotions, not to keep invoking other promotions, but they've figured out, look, if we get a match going quick, then we can buy ourselves time for this later. We're here, and this is sort of, and we talked about this at length too, WWE sort of sets the standard for soap opera wrestling, right? And they would be a film company if they could be. They would be a television company if they could be, right? They would rather lean on that than the performers and the other things, which is a shame. And that's sort of, you know, you could argue that came out of the Attitude Era or whatever. There's people writing books about that. I'm not going to get boring about that right now, but this is a symptom of it. You have these big bloated segments that don't mean anything, really. And you could have done this a little faster. You could have streamlined it and kept us interested. It took me a long time to get through this because I got bored and had to go back and watch and kind of keep track. The moments we mentioned were the fun moments that stood out, absolutely. But after that, it was like, And then we cut to commercial, we came back, and then we still had all these entrances, which we'll talk about in a minute, until we got to it. The first ding of the night wasn't until like minute 29 of the night. We're almost 30 minutes in and no one's locked up or done a thing. Ugh.
It is what it is. And I said this last week with Minnie when the news report came out, because originally, you know, with Randy Orton returning at Survivor Series, a lot of us here and a lot of the wrestling community figures that, okay, it's going to be Randy versus Roman at Rumble. Then Roman versus Rock, at least for me, at Elimination Chamber in Perth, and then we would get Cody versus Roman. Now, because Rock has returned and thrown everything into the mix, higher ups don't want to see Randy Orton pin, so that's why we're getting this as a fatal 4-way at Rumble. Which I'm looking at this, I was just like, I think, unfortunately, as much as I love him, I think AJ's taking this pin.
I think so. I think AJ's such a company guy at this point. He's 46, maybe 45. Right. He's been here forever. He knows the stage of the career that he's in. I don't want to say this is the one last big push for him, but the way WWE kind of does things, it feels that way. Am I too out of line thinking about that? Like, this might be because now he's not with the OC, which they had a weird moment promo-y thing just to remind us they exist. We'll talk about that later, I guess. But again, we don't need this. You could have streamlined this 100 different ways and made it okay. But then you had Roman had to get involved and mess this thing up and makes it muddy. You don't need to do that. We'll rant and rave. Keep going. Let's keep going.
Let's keep going. Well, like you said, we were like 30 minutes in until we finally get the ding. And once again, I'm ordering this in the way that my brain makes more sense because I hate like, oh, we get an entrance, then we cut backstage, and then we get the other entrance. So we're gonna go in order with how my brain operates.
Yeah, that's right. Man.
So we're finally at our first match of the evening. If I'm being completely honest, this is my match of the night: LWO versus Legado del Fantasma.
Really?
Listen, this was the only match that I felt like I hate to say this, but by default, this is my match of the night because it was exciting. LWO continues to lose on Smackdown, which makes me feel why. Because it's weird because I have Cruz del Toro and we have Joaquin Wilde, the two members that are of LWO that are not Carlito, who are currently also in NXT right now, part of the Dusty Cup Tag Team Tournament. They're winning there, but we're continuing to have them lose here, which I guess whatever. But the point is, this is my match of the night. This had everything I wanted. It had flips. It had tricks. I'm happy to see Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza, who were on main roster, who just completed a stint in NXT and now are back on main roster. I love this all Latino warfare that we got going on. Obviously, we're still trying to figure out, where to tell the story since Ray is out for a couple of months due to injury.
Sure.
But I love seeing everyone. But they got excited at some parts, and I was like, ooh, don't land on your head. Ooh, don't break an arm. Ooh, don't do this.
That's what I was going to speak to. I forgot who it was. Someone flipped through the ropes and did this thing and almost missed completely. And I was like, oh, God. We had that big jump. I felt they rushed it. And this is with rough trios matches, which I talked about on the other episode of another promotion, where trios matches tend to sometimes get rushed in the middle because there's so many things going on. So you got to be really ready for it. And I'm not judging them. They're professionals, and I'm just a dude doing a podcast. So I get it. I don't want to be too out of pocket. So there were a few misses there. The commentary tried to cover for that one. It was a glancing blow, but it was enough for them to get him. Like, total whiff. Like, there were a few misses here and there, which I was like, hey, just slow down. It's okay. I think if you're sacrificing speed for safety, that's when things kind of tend to go wrong, which sadly the luchadors find out more than others because the luchas push. That's that style, so I get it. And I'm just kind of nitpicking here. I thought match was fine. I kind of meta-wise, my head came out of it because I was like, please don't get hurt. Please this. Please this. It was a commercial right in the middle of this for me. I'm not sure what you watched it on, but there was right in the middle, like, look, we got some momentum, and we'll be right back. No! Why do you do that to me? This was not my match of the night, but I did like everyone in here. I thought it was a very good match.
Yeah, Legado del Fantasma could pick up the win here due to a distraction, and then. Though I will say that springboard into the finisher was so cool looking.
That jump, I don't know, that lift into Santos's knee was like, ooh, gross. Like, I like Santos as a heel. I love him in LWO, don't get me wrong, but as a heel, that dude.
I loved when Santos was a face, but he works better as a heel. That's what he was in NXT before coming up to main roster, and his heel persona is so much more engaging.
He barks at the crowd in a way. He finds the camera better, which is odd for me to like. He just kind of I don't know.
Being a heel comes natural to Santos because if I remember correctly, in the Lucha Libre scene, which is where he came from, he was a heel luchador too.
Sure. I mean, we could talk about this off podcast time, but we all gotta get Lucha masks, and we all gotta decide if we're heel or face Luchas, because we gotta talk. But anyway,
that's a Patreon goal. I mean, like, get enough subscribers, we'll do a whole entire review of something in Luchador masks.
Oh my god,
it would be so much fun.
Hi, I'm Excalibur, and I'm also Excalibur, and I'm also Excalibur. Sorry, that's for another promotion. Mikey, go.
I love it. Like I said, Legado del Fantasma pick up, and we're going to see more of LWO and Legado probably down the road. There's probably going to be some stuff in the Rumble next week, which I'm excited for. From here, we get our first backstage segment with probably the best people that I love right now on SmackDown, Pretty Deadly. I was just like, they are so good. I love them. I'm hoping that we get to do more with them, because what we get tonight, while I loved what I saw, I was like, this was a repeat of 2 weeks ago. So, but you know what? We'll talk about it when we get to it. But Pretty Deadly get asked, last week, you guys you guys faced Tyler Bate. You guys faced Butch, and you were also facing Tyler Bate. And you guys weren't prepared. How are you prepared for this one? So they basically set up for what we're getting. They said, you know what? We've known Butch for all this time. And now that we know who Tyler Bate is, which, let's be honest, I hate that main roster wants to try to ignore NXT stuff. It's like, y'all fought in NXT, but that's okay. It is what it is. But they're like, but now we're prepared. So then they go out into the ring. And I keep forgetting that they have the actual big old disco ball come down during their entrance.
Mm-hmm. They do.
Best entrance 2024. Which is going to set up into their tag team match, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But then there was a semblance of hope, because I actually enjoyed what we saw next. This was a little video package we got of The Pride, which is Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits, calling out Karrion Kross's crew, The Final Testament. Basically sets up that these two factions are going to come face to face. I have a little bit of glimmer of hope, but that's because I really love the Street Profits, and I love my Dominican brother in Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, but they made them boring. This gave you hope?
Well, here's the thing. The in-ring, I think, is going to be great. But what I didn't like is the writing was crap, but I don't blame them. I blame whoever gave them the script.
They've made, I guess, Bobby Lashley is still Bobby Lashley, and he can cut these promos all day and look great. They've made the Street Profits, the Suit Profits, and they're cardboard now.
The one person I will say, Angelo was okay, but they really nerfed Montez Ford's charisma. I was like, I miss the crazy Montez Ford who would just say off-the-cuff stuff.
They nerfed them both. I mean, in my opinion, they nerfed them both. They took any glimpse of rebellion and street urban fun out of it. And now I'm supposed to root for you? This suit and tie thing? Like, why? And I'm confused on who... Are we doing heel face, or are we just doing,
They did
I almost said something horrible and I shouldn't have said it.
Oops.
Are we just doing, I was like, that's not going to work. I can tell you that later. But
problematic.
Yeah, exactly. Are we just doing us versus them? Is there a reason for me to, there's no reason for me to care here.
So me and Minnie talked about this last week on the SmackDown review. We like the name. We like to see that we're finally giving the Pride something to do. But the biggest thing that we critiqued it on was that they have done a very bad job. I was like, if they're supposed to be the face in this, like they were heels like not even less than a couple weeks ago, and now you're suddenly me and Minnie critique saying that it makes no sense for you to suddenly turn them face out of nowhere. Like, I hate when they turn people just out of nowhere, because they realize that at least the Street Profits and Bobby are way too over to be booed. Like, individually as a tag team and just as an individual, they work better as baby faces, in my opinion, or at least tweeners at best.
I think they might have shot for them to try and be this tweener. They tried to thread that line in the beginning, if you remember a little bit, where it was just sort of Bobby Lashley picking and choosing, and then them going out and
doing
handling
things.
Business or not handling business. Yeah,
they're still way too over to be booed, which is what I think WWE wants.
And then what's funny is they get in the ring and they're Street Profits.
Literally, their charisma,
their style, and you're right, that charisma, the Riz, as the kids say, comes through, and they're a totally different person than, look at me, I'm in a suit and tie and I'm doing this thing. So it's kind of the count. Even Bobby Lashley, I'm wearing a suit, I'm wearing a tie, but then goes out there and becomes the Greek god of Bobby Lashley. You know what I mean? The Almighty. I don't know. I think it's playing too contrary to archetype. That's me. We'll talk more when we get to the other package that complements this one.
Yep.
Quote unquote. It gave you hope. It made me go, huh? So we'll see.
The rose-colored lenses are on because I'll admit they are on because I love the Street Profits and I love Bobby Lashley.
I'm biased too. I'm like, I love you guys, please.
I want to wait.
Come back.
I'm gonna reserve judgment until if we get the match next week on the Go Home Smackdown. Then I'm gonna reserve judgment and critique everything. But we'll see what happens with that. So from there, we then jump into our tag team match. Pretty Deadly are still dancing underneath the disco ball, a la Dua Lipa, Donna Summer. Take your pick of disco era pop if you want.
Wow, that's a good 40 years there. Nice.
I love it so much. And then, of course, our little strong boy, as me and Will have dubbed him from NXT, Tyler Bate, who is now on the SmackDown main roster. So, I mean, me and Vinny broke that last week that he is officially part of the SmackDown roster. And then, of course, I was like, oh, okay, you know, it's going to be, we're running this back from 2 weeks ago, Tyler Bate and Butch versus Pretty Deadly. It is no longer Butch, though. Tyler Bate's music hits, it goes off, and then we get new music. I'm like, wait a minute, I know this tune. And then everyone starts screaming in the audience, or at least the piped-in audience, probably. Which,
yeah, it's probably piped in.
I was just like, these filthy casuals. No, I'm just kidding. And I will only state that because why? Because we get the return of the Bruiserweight, no longer Butch, but to his OG moniker when he came to WWE, the Bruiserweight, Pete Dunne. Yes, man.
I think that's cool. I'm a little sad to see the Brawling Brutes go out the way it did. This is the end of that faction. I feel bad for anyone who bought the $85 rugby kit for the Brawling Brutes a year ago when that was on sale.
That is very true. But to be fair, we're exchanging the Brawling Brutes for British Strong Style, which is the tag team name for Tyler Bate and Butch, because they actually tag teamed on the UK circuit.
I think that's great. I love seeing. I did a little bit of the homework when I heard the phrase British Strong Style and went, oh, and looked that up and saw the two of them and went, this is great. I hope they get a push as a tag team now. I hope they get to kind of run with this a little more. This was my match of the night because I had the most fun watching this one. Nothing against the trios match we talked about earlier. I already said I got a little heady meta, please don't get hurt sort of thing with that. I also wanted a little more out of the second half of that other trios match. This one is just because I'm like that. I'm just laughing at British people, and that just makes me happy. So that tends to do it for me. So Pretty Deadly, so much fun. The stuff they do. I'm watching Tyler Bates is a lot of fun. Watching Big Angry Pete Dunne is really cool. Like there's a different serial killer vibe to him now, which he had, and now he's this sort of thing.
Pete Dunne is more joint manipulation style of wrestling, which I really love to see.
It's fun.
Breaking the arms, breaking elbows,
so
fingers.
Different, right? Well, and then Pretty Deadly sold the hell out of it.
That's the other
really
thing too.
Well with how
Pretty
to do
Deadly
it
are
and
good at
around.
selling it too,
Yeah.
and they're also UK circuit people too. So this was good British wrestling, which I love to see, and I want more of.
I thought it was a lot of fun. I think they should have gotten a little extra time, but that's just me. This was fun. This was great. I'm glad that Pretty Deadly's healthy. That injury was a while ago, and they still ran with that. And again, like Brawling Brutes gone forever. I'm sure there'll be some sort of something of that whenever Sheamus returns.
I'm interested to see how we're gonna play this because Ridge Holland is in NXT right now, so he's doing their thing. He had a great match against another UK talent, Joe Coffey in NXT, which is great. And then so we'll see how they play it with Pete Dunne and Sheamus. Which then in tandem, we get another backstage segment with Pretty Deadly, who again are comedic about it. They're like, who the hell is Pete Dunne? I was just like,
I love the idea, like, you've known him 20 years. Who's Pete Dunne? We prepared for Butch. And you've known him for so long. Like, wait, why do you make him a brain hurt, you goofy? Goofy wrestling for life. It was great. I thought that was so much fun.
We did. All right, so then from here, let's talk about it. The KO show with special guest Logan Paul. So yeah. Where do we? Okay, I want to start off. We'll start off with the things we like, and then we'll critique it.
The things we like.
I like Kevin Owens, so that's always a first for me.
I like Kevin Owens.
I'm gonna be honest. Now I will say this. I liked the heel. I like that Logan Paul is just being his kind of online personality self, which is leaning more towards a heel. That works better than when he was trying to be a tweener when he first came into the company. Now he's just full on heel, being his self that we know him of his online personality. Great. I love the back and forth that him and Kevin Owens had at the first 7-8 minutes of this. My biggest critique, it went on way too long.
Yeah, the fact that you can say first 7 or 8 minutes.
We could have cut it right there.
Implying it went longer than 7 or 8 minutes is already What do I like about this? I agree with you. I do like the fact that Paul has kind of taken on this heel, gone full heel. I think he came in and had to humble himself because I think he thought he would be able to come in and go face. I think he thought he was going to be able to come in and command that kind of thing, even though they brought him in, as he talks about, and Kevin Owens giving him the stunner. He came in and kind of was this sort of heel-ish character anyway, but I think he thought they were gonna make him a face, and it's like, no, that's not what you represent to other folks. So yes, I do like the direction of that. I'm trying to think. I like Kevin Owens. That's something that I like. I have a lot of other cons and issues with it, but those, I guess that's the positive I could take is, he's a full heel now. Good.
But yeah, the thing, now let's talk about the reason we're why here. The things we didn't necessarily like. Like for me, I feel like this, again, it went on way too long. I think we could have had that quick back and forth, then you have the punch, and then we could have ended it right there. I was like, great, let's go. This is awesome. Yeah. But then after Logan Paul said his thing, then KO, rebutted with, there's a lot of things I could say about you too, but I can't. And you know why? It's because just like you coming in, we're protected. And then if Logan punched him right there, that would have been a great way to end this segment and then be like, short, concise, good. Then it went on for like an extra 7 minutes that didn't need to be there.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me of the thing I liked. I do like that Kevin Owens called out that idea of you showed up and we worked for this. Because that has been something that a lot of other wrestlers have talked about and fans have talked about. Full disclosure, I have not listened to Logan Paul's podcast where he talks to wrestlers and other folks. I have heard he's actually really cool with a lot of wrestlers and they talk about a lot of things. And apparently he's a really stand-up and respectful dude on those podcasts and what he believes in what he's done and how hard he's worked. So I will acknowledge that, so I'm not totally hating on this guy. I've said this before. I've not liked the Paul brothers for 10 plus years, going back to my days on Vine. If you know what Vine was an app.
Me and Professor are old, you guys. Like, I know what Vine was.
So there's a part of me that was just like, because you represent everything that I was raised to hate. That being said, I will never get over the fact that Kevin Owens hits Paul in the jaw to knock him out with the broken arm cast, and they ice Logan Paul's face and put the bruise on his eye when he never. Come on.
We talked about it because they hit him in the wrong place, put the makeup on the wrong place. Consistency.
That stuff like that's gonna drive me crazy. I agree. I think this was bloated. I don't think they were picking up cues, to use the acting term, where it was just sort of, I'm gonna say this thing. And then there's this pause for about 15 seconds. And then, I'm going to say this thing back to you. And I'm going to look at the audience. In my opinion, Kevin Owens looked bored and he did not want to do this. I don't know what his personal feelings might be for Logan Paul or why he's doing this with Logan Paul. I don't think he's a big fan of the way this arc is or is going, but he's a company guy and he's been doing this a long time, like you said. So he's doing it because he's been asked to and written to. I'm sure it'll be a great match because athletically Logan Paul can do it and Kevin Owens is a pro, does amazing things. I get the impression that Kevin Owens is very meh about this whole thing and it's starting to come off a little bit. That's just my take.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because we technically, at this point, who knows if we're getting one more match before the end of the week, but We have the 2 Rumble matches. We have the Fatal 4-Way, and we're having this United States Championship match. Those are your 4 matches so far for Rumble, which I don't hate. I think they're going to be really fun stuff. It's just I wish that builds for lots of these were better, but we'll talk about that. So KO versus Logan Paul for the United States Championship happening this upcoming Saturday at the Royal Rumble on the 27th, so that should be fun. We get a quick backstage segment with the Bloodline. Roman Reigns is tripping out, and he is about to verbally smack down Jimmy and Solo and Paul Heyman because it's like, you guys are messing up my game, bro. Like, what is happening? Someone deleted the quick save. Like this, he's like, it's like the older brother yelling at the younger brothers, be like, "You saved over my file on Final Fantasy VII."
That's
like,
really funny.
And which really,
dude, I lost all my Skyrim characters.
Yes,
yeah,
so
funny.
He's ready to reprimand everyone, and I did enjoy just the subtlety of it. Solo Sikoa steps to Roman and is like, "Listen, my bad from last week, but I'm gonna take care of business tonight." He leaves. Jimmy looks at Solo, looks at Roman, just shrugs, and then leaves with Solo. I was just like, I like that subtlety. I was like, the split is gonna happen, and it's gonna be glorious.
They've been hinting at a split for a long time.
Yeah,
and they won't pull the trigger. They had a chance to. It was coming, and then they went, no, let's keep going. And the fact that we see Roman once every 4 months doesn't help do such a thing. It makes it kind of hard. I don't know. We have lots of differing views, all the hosts here at Biconics, on the ability and the capabilities of Roman Reigns. I go back and forth myself to a degree, but I'm also I've lost interest in this a long time ago, and it just takes up space.
I mean, we talked about it over the summer. We were over this storyline. I mean, for me personally, I'm over the storyline. I'm not over Roman Reigns as a character. And from what I could see, I still am waiting for confirmation from certain resources, but his infrequent appearances, and God forbid, hopefully, fingers crossed, like whatever religion you subscribe to, that potentially there is a little bit of pushback from when he left the company for a year and a half due to, chemotherapy and all that with his leukemia.
Sure.
And that it might be flaring up again, and there's some drawbacks from that.
Oh, really?
Which, if that is the
true?
case, I haven't got any confirmation of why that's why Roman Reigns is being as infrequently shown as it is at this point. But if that's the case, let this man drop the titles at WrestleMania and then let him go take a long break, because if that's his case, I want his health to be the priority.
Then that's where transparency can work for you, because it's not coming off the way that you would intend for the folks who are dedicated to watching this stuff. And you're right. We've seen that a handful of times where it's injuries or family things or whatever else. There's a reason why they're gone, or there is a reason that this happened. If they really want Roman to break all these records and hold the title forever, great. But if Roman's going through this, you really got to decide what's more important, why and how, because now you're diluting his reign as champion as well. We can talk about that for the Biconics exclusive or whatever. But if that is the case, in full transparency, you don't have to tell us all your business. Absolutely not. You can mention something. Some stuff does get out there, and that's okay. Instead of just dropping us on our head and making these tragic things. That I think you would owe that to some of the viewing audience. I don't need to know everything about you, but if there's a little bit of, hey, I'm struggling, hey, I'm this, okay, great. And again, we're also being hypercritical, and this is the same with sports and stuff like that too. And that's tricky. If what you're saying is true and that's the rumor, that makes this a lot trickier.
Yeah, so we shall see what happens. So then we get the quickest match of the evening. This is for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. See Kaden Carter and Katana Chance defending their titles against the Unholy Union, which is the tag team of Alba Fire, Isla Dawn. This was the quickest 4-minute match ever. I wanted more for this, and on paper I was excited, and then I saw it, I was like, I'm disappointed. There's like we talked about off camera, there's a couple of spots where they were botched, but also I feel like they had to rush through everything given the fact that this was only a 4-minute match.
And that's what I chalk it up to, is because this continuously happens to the women. I feel like they had their time cut in half because they were rushing. You watched it on a different service than I did. I came back from commercial and Damage Control was already there. The two of them were already in the ring with the titles, and then Isla Dawn and her name I just forgot is walking down like right there, bang bang bang.
Yeah.
Unholy Union. Like wait, what? So they were already kind of rushing the women as it was. Bailey is still rough on the mic,
on commentary,
and that's hard because she's trying to keep it interesting. And commentary is just kind of leaving her there to drown. They're not setting her up in any way.
See,
She's
I think Bailey can be good on commentary. Like if Michael Cole was still on SmackDown, because she and Michael Cole can banter back and forth because they've already done it before. But you have Corey Graves, who is not necessarily like, I think he's okay. He's not as bad as people make him out to be, but he's not.
I like Corey Graves.
I like Corey Graves.
He's all right. I think he's witty and he gets jokes and punchlines faster. He's also he's on script.
Yeah.
So he's not going to have the same charisma as someone like Michael Cole, who can do both the earbud and kind of riff.
Right. I think
Corey Graves is going to look down and always be where we need to be.
Exactly. I think the biggest struggle though is that Kevin Patrick is like not there yet, and he's still new to all this, and so having him
he's been there about a year
or so.
Over a year then. Yeah. I mean, he's got the reps in. He's been doing this a while.
I don't mind him. I
think he's fine.
I think he's fine, but the banter between those two and Bailey obviously wasn't working out. And again, the match itself, because they rushed through everything, we
really rushed. I don't think this showcased any of them well, which is really unfortunate because I know they're all super talented. There were a few, not botch like got hurt, botch like huge miscues. And if you were in the live audience, you didn't catch them, but in the camera, it's right there, and you're calling the miss or you're calling this thing and the thing. This, for me, was sort of the trajectory down because there were a lot of things that happened in this match that would happen whenever there were other wrestlers in the ring the rest of the night. We're like a little over halfway through. This was just disappointing. The ending is weird.
So, Kaden and Katana win, so I figured that they would. I wish we got more time. But then the ending sequence is weird because, again, you have these two tag teams in the ring, and then randomly you have all the Damage Control trying to squeeze in near the commentary table. And EO looked bored. EO looked bored. Dakota and Kyrie and Asuka were just talking as Bailey was on commentary. But let's focus on something. And I have a gripe with WWE once again because I thought we would get something different. But I hate the name. I was like, oh, we're still using this name. All right, whatever. But anyways, Katana and Kaden are in the ring after their victory, and then Asuka and Kyrie come in with the tag belts, which I was like, listen, say what you will. I am ready to see Kaden and Katana versus Asuka and Kyrie. I think that would be. This is actually two women tag teams that I know can go. Just give them the time. But I'm just like, oh. And then when we get the bumpers, this match is happening next week, I think. And I'm just like, oh, Kaden and Katana are probably losing this. I'm mad because I was like, is this what it is? You have them beat Chelsea and Piper only for them to be transitional champions for this. And then we're still calling Kyrie and Asuka the Kabuki Warriors. I'm like, see, this is where I got mad. I was like, listen, I had an issue with it when they were called that when Kyrie was originally in WWE a couple years ago, before she left for New Japan.
Sure.
But this is what I was like, it's so racial.
For those of you that don't know, Kabuki is a style of theater with very specific traditional paint and gesture and costuming, which is sort of taught generationally, handed down from family to family, parents to children, so on and so forth. Which has nothing to do with how they look and how they perform in the ring. I feel like when they came up with this name all those years ago, I feel like somebody did some quick Google research, looked at Kabuki theater, and then even, honestly, if you were going to do something based on that, don't do it on the art of Kabuki. I think it would have been more fun to do something, I don't know if they play wordplay, but like have Asuka and Kyrie do like lean more towards, I don't know, Rakugo storytelling. Like that would have been funny. Sure. But
Kabuki, again, I was just like, this is kind of insensitive.
That's a little.
And the way they were being presented at the time, I was just like, why do I feel like I'm watching a poor man's version of,
I mean, it's like calling the LWO the Telemundo Warriors. You know what I mean? Like it's like
so watered down. I was like,
picking things
just in the name of the Kabuki Warriors enough. I was just like, you're just taking a fat dump on the beautiful history that is Kabuki theater and storytelling with that. I was like,
again,
fine,
the match was so good. We're talking about everything around it.
No, it's 2024. We cannot have racially.
No, you're not wrong.
You're racially right. Insensitive, culturally insensitive. This is like if Kylie Jenner walked in with cornrows. Like, it's that bad for me.
Yes. I'm not diminishing it at all. I'm just meaning like, yeah, that was so great. Let's talk about the problems of this. You're right. I don't know, man. What happened after this?
Yeah, so I am excited for this match though next week though, because this is 2 actual tag teams. But please give them time, especially Asuka and Kairi. They deserve it. So, not even a promo, but backstage we see the OC, which is Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, and Michin, as she is now called, Mia Yim, Mrs. Keithley, as I also like to refer to her. They're talking. We don't even get anything. Commentary is like doing the ad lib for this because then AJ comes and confronts them for some reason, and we kind of hear Luke Gallows tell AJ, no matter what, we still have your back, and AJ just leaves. I was like, okay, we're not gonna see them, but sure.
Yeah, why?
I don't know.
Like, what is this? This doesn't help any of the story. This doesn't allude to anything that happens later. There's nothing here. And we talked about this a few times. This whole OC faction with AJ has been misused pretty much since it happened and got together on SmackDown. I don't know. And if AJ's Lone Wolf AJ, why is Lone Wolf AJ talking to not Lone Wolf OC? You didn't need this promo.
So from here, we will wrap these next 2 back segments in a backstage interview up. We get a video package that was in tandem with the Pride earlier in the show. This is the final testament. I will say I love the presentation. I'm a big sucker for Guillermo del Toro-esque visuals.
Yeah.
I'm a big sucker. My favorite directors of all times, just styles-wise. And it's problematic to say, but I'm a big Tim Burton person, like Tim Burton. And I love Guillermo del Toro. I love their styles of directing. I'm weird, aesthetics for,
Is Tim Burton problematic right now?
I mean, people say he is. I couldn't really find anything, but people in the comments can tell me if I'm wrong. But I like Tim Burton and Guillermo del Toro's directors style-wise.
I've heard a lot of things about him as a person and as a worker from people who've worked with him and other things. So, sure. But we can talk about that. That's not... Yeah.
But... This is,
I didn't
again in
go
tandem.
Ahead.
This is in tandem with the Pride. Basically, we'll meet you next week. Scarlett still looking good as ever.
Yeah, Scarlett was great. I thought this was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's giving Karrion Kross something to do, like we've talked about. He's no longer just generic wrestler 4. Like, there's something for Karrion to do. And again, I've said this a few times. Apparently, Karrion's the coolest and the funniest and a great guy. I wish the nice guys got pushes more, and I wish he was more of what he really is instead of this, look at me, I'm brooding and I'm wearing black guy. Yeah, it's fine.
We talked about this on the Collision review, where we took a tangent, me, Luis, and Adolfo, all the Latin kids on the Biconics. We took a tangent on Collision talking about how, and I mean, you've seen this on Dynamite, all the brown POC women wrestlers, they always get the short end of the stick, especially the luchadors are always losing in the other company half the time. And so we were talking about Karrion Kross. It was like, imagine WWE just let him be the Puerto Rican from New York that Karrion Kross is. And just, I was like, money made right there, but it is what it is. But I am cautiously optimistic. I want things to work out for Karrion Kross. I'm one of the few people that I love Karrion Kross. I am hoping this works out for him, as I told Minnie last week in our review, because I feel that, I don't want to say this is the final shot for Karrion Kross, but I'm hoping this goes over better than everything else he's been given to do, because I want to see Karrion Kross succeed on the main roster. I really do.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of his contract, how much contract he has left, and what's happening right here. And we talked about this a year or two ago. Like, I wonder what they're gonna do. I wonder how they're gonna do this. Are they gonna use him? So I'm glad that he's being used. Haven't seen him in the ring for a while, but I'm glad he's being used. I don't know. It remains to be seen. But I'm interested in the match for sure. But again, these are sort of two okay. Wow. Yeah, I don't want to rant about this. Let's keep going.
Ultimately, we're getting the Pride and the final testament to Face Off. I would not be surprised if this ends in schmaz and then that takes them out of the run. Anyways, we'll talk about this later. So our final backstage segment before we have to talk about the really weird and clunky last two matches we get tonight. Backstage, Carmelo Hayes, and they decide to talk about what happened last week where we thought Austin Theory and Carmelo Hayes died when they landed on their heads last week.
So I heard about this last week. I couldn't be here last week, so I apologize, but I did check in with the Smackdown. I saw this, and it was their faces and the ref's reaction that really alarmed me in that moment. Yeah, it was a botch. Yeah, it was ugly looking. And I heard, oh yeah, they landed on their neck and head, so the match was called. Okay, and then when I saw it, I was like, oh, in the moment? That looks terrifying.
Yeah, because, Austin Theory's head landed and his neck went one way, and then you couldn't really see it, but it's also reported that the two collided heads on the way down, too, which was not great.
And that's what the ref reacted to, was the pop of their faces. Blap! And he went, oh, that was a good... And then immediately seeing boom, the car crash in front of him, which we don't really see. There's no real good camera angle of that. And I tried to read some posts about it. Really scary. Particularly with, the random injuries. And there's been this injury bug. There's always has been. But the last few months, we've been hyper aware of it. Scary. I'm not sure how I feel about them making a work out of it, that they felt they need to comment on it, to do a kayfabe, let's make it all okay thing. I don't think that we needed that, but I guess it's okay to speak to it. I don't hate it.
Well, Carmelo Hayes talks about it, and then basically Austin Theory and Grayson Waller come in to interrupt. And, I know this was given to Austin to say, but I hate watching that. And then it was like, you tried to end my career. I was like, sir, Austin, calm down. We don't need to go there because we have seen this line be used in various places over the last couple of years. And that's one of my favorite. That's one of the things I really dislike. I was like, we know that it wasn't on purpose, but I hate when they make it a work to make me you tried to end my career. I was like, no, because we've had people literally die in the on television long time ago, lest you forget. So I was like, let's not go there. I was like, pump the brakes.
Ron Simmons ending Ahmad Johnson's career. That was trying to end a man's career, right? There's examples of this in the past of, I'm going to end this man's career. I'm not a rapper though. Yeah, that's out there. Yeah.
But ultimately, this whole entire thing sets up, we're getting a rematch next week on the Go Home show, which, you know what, I'm okay with, because I feel that because of how things went last week, I feel that both Austin and Carmelo deserve another shot to kind of be able to redo this. I want to say the biggest heroes the last couple of weeks on SmackDown have been the medical team and the staff.
Sure.
Just the last couple of weeks on both Raw and SmackDown and NXT, I love that, and I don't want to say it was because of Vince, but I am noticing that they are okay with calling off matches and putting up the X even during the television episodes instead of making them wrestle through injuries and stuff like that.
I am happy to see that we've changed enough as an industry to do that. This is what's right by them. This keeps them from getting destroyed. Other athletes calling it out, what are we toughing out, what are we not? I'm glad that we're not just he didn't really even throw up the X, just kind of threw up the call it off, it's over, which was really smart by the ref, because now we can sort of kayfabe our way out of it, as opposed to it's over, cut it from television. I don't know. Again, we can rant about this another time. I really like that the ref did this to take care of them. I don't think we needed so much of a work to get out of it. I'm glad that they get another opportunity for a match.
I feel like they could have did something like on social media posts, be like, hey, we're going to run this back next week and then just have them online do it. I feel like we didn't need to have an on-air confrontation to set it up, but it is what it is. I'm happy to see that we're getting them running it back next week.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the last two matches because we can talk about them in tandem because this was a clunky train wreck. It was
terrible.
It was crazy. Atlanta, Georgia got screwed out of what could have been a decent SmackDown. So we first start off with AJ versus LA Knight. This match got set up like towards the first half of the show when Nick Aldis went to try to go talk to Roman Reigns in the locker room, and AJ's like, "I want LA Knight." Nick's like, "All right, you get it tonight." So we get maybe 6-7 minutes of this before Solo and Jimmy make their way in and cause a big old DQ.
Okay, but the 6-7 minutes we got were not good.
No, I was like, what happened here?
And that's a shame because these two, we know they can go. We know they're great at this. To give you an example, LA Knight called for chops. They stood in the middle of the ring, and LA Knight missed 2 chops. Completely whiffed on AJ, and then they did something else right after that. I can't remember. And then they missed and kind of botched that. So either they were totally not communicating or they were just absolutely thrown off. Something was wrong from the top of this. And they both got in there. They went to get to work, and either they had different ideas of what they were going to do.
It never clicked.
Nothing clicked. And they've clicked before.
Yes.
And part of me is a little down because I'm like, I've seen this like 6 times since I got back on the channel a month ago. Like, why are these two going every SmackDown? What are we doing? And then these two were like, fine, we'll do it again. And then they kind of blah. That was really disappointing.
And again, this match ends in a DQ because Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso kind of rear their ugly heads in this. And Solo gets on the mic, calls out Randy Orton, which then gets into our main event. I was like, this was a weird way to transition to it. I hated it so much. So the main event was even worse for me, only because, again, overbooking. You don't have to overbook everything. So Solo and Randy are trying to have a match. Jimmy Uso is running distraction and interference on behalf of Solo. So this match is happening. I was like, LA Knight and AJ are nowhere to be seen, but then AJ style grabs Jimmy Uso and throws him against the back of the LED board. It's kind of sick to watch. I was just like,
yeah.
But I hate it because, again, Solo Sikoa so far has been presented as this menacing force. Hell, he beat the piss out of John Cena at Crown Jewel, and John Cena put this kid over, and now Solo has been losing almost every single match since then. Mm-hmm. And this was another case because due to the distraction of everything going on, Randy Orton is able to hit an RKO on Solo and pin him for the 1, 2, 3.
And there's maybe, how many moves do you think Randy Orton and Solo had? How many moves were in this match?
I say maybe 8, 9 tops.
There's 6. There's no lockup. There's no nothing. It's just this, face, this, that, go, done. It was as far as a match goes, it was like a 2-minute match for your main event. And you just had these distractions. It's just muddy. And we're not going anywhere. You have the Royal Rumble in a week. This is boring. This doesn't make me interested in a fatal 4-way. And then we'll talk about what happened and why. Yeah, we'll talk.
See,
and then what? And then what happened?
We'll talk about what happened, and then I'm gonna put on my conspiracy hat because I have some thoughts, and I feel like I'm sensing a conspiracy here. But Randy Orton picks up the victory. Then Roman Reigns comes out and destroys Randy. With all the chaos going on, he signs the contract, so Roman is officially participating in the Fatal 4-Way. I did appreciate the little thing. He goes to hand the contract to Nick Aldis and just being a turd, just drops it on the floor for Nick Aldis to have to bend down and pick up, which was fine. And then Roman Reigns is waiting for Randy Orton to get up, tries to go for the spear. Randy Orton, like Oprah, giving RKOs to everybody and they mama tonight's episode. So Randy Orton gives an RKO to Roman Reigns. For some reason, goes and grabs the contract from Nick Aldis to throw it in Roman's face for some odd reason. Like, I don't know why we needed that, but that's how SmackDown goes off the air. So, what in the hell did I just watch with these last two matches? Like, what is this?
Why? There was no match there. It was just loose ends. To me, that's a spot fest. This is a spot fest. With that term gets thrown around a lot, but it's sort of like there's no match, just weird spots. Hey, Randy, you're going to go out there. You're going to RKO all these folks. LA and AJ, you're going to kind of have a match, but it's going to get interrupted, and we're going to do this thing. Nobody got to do their job. Nobody got to work or do anything. And it just mutes, in my opinion, everything that you're trying to build up to the Rumble. I don't care. None of them have heat. It just sounds like petty squabbling between AJ, LA, and Randy Orton. You all got the same story. You all have the same reasons. That doesn't make me interested. You should have different reasons for wanting what you want. That's a writer thing of like we can talk about that because you're right. There's just something to that just felt disingenuous. If these folks truly believe what they believe, why would it happen this way? I was just very meh about it.
Yeah.
This might be one of the longest oversells of the spear we've seen in a long time. Randy Orton took forever to stand up, and Roman Reigns is just growling. I felt like minutes and minutes and minutes were going by. Just kind of silly and just arbitrary. It's unfortunate. And I hope Atlanta got their money's worth in the dark matches and the stuff that we didn't see.
From what I heard, they did, because they got, what matches did they get? I think they got Cody versus Finn Balor, which I was like, ooh, that sounds interesting.
Wow.
And then I forgot what other match they got. I have to look it up again, but I'm just like, Atlanta, Georgia, for a taped episode, y'all got highway robbery. Like, this was so ridiculous.
That's super unfortunate. And
yeah. All right, I'm gonna put my conspiracy hat on. So,
all right, here we go. What's the conspiracy?
So, I've noticed over the last couple of weeks, and I will say this, and there are some people who have defended this build into the Fatal 4-Way. Me personally, this is
really,
yeah. Again,
people are defending this. All right.
You know, I'm not one to argue with people on the internet, because arguing with people on the internet is beneath me. Just kidding. But I'm putting my conspiracy hat on because I have some feelings. And this goes back to a couple of weeks ago when we got reports, because I was wondering to myself, okay, so we're not having just Randy versus Roman. Now we're making this into the Fatal 4-Way. Why is that? And then the news broke that supposedly, allegedly, according to Fightful and other places, the higher-ups didn't want a one-on-one match between Roman and Randy because they didn't want Randy to get pinned so early in his return. But in my head, I'm like, but you had a beautiful story where Randy and Roman have cutting this promo where Roman basically is like, I'm the new legend killer. I'm going to end, Randy Orton and put him down. I was like, that's a cool story. Like, it's okay. To me, Randy Orton is somebody, in my opinion, that can lose even in his return right now, because he's already like top tier superstar. Like, I feel like he has built his career enough where one loss to Roman Reigns is like Teflon. It's not going to get buried underneath. It's fine. But because higher ups wanted to protect Randy Orton, I can totally see that they're trying to hodgepodge with super glue, duct tape, and desperation to build up to this Fatal 4-Way where you protect Randy, you get Roman to still hold on to the championship. But I was just like, I'm looking at I can see, and this is what's the worst part for me is that normally if you're going to change plans, you want to try to make it believable in the sense that you don't want us to see, this was not the original plan. The entire last 3 weeks, I have seen behind the curtain. I was like, this is clunky. Story building is not making sense. Like, these people are kind of just being thrown to the wolves to try to survive until Rumble. And I'm like, AJ's going to take this pin. And like, I feel like this particular story is not great. The building for this has been clunky and garbage. And to me, I was just like, could have just still had a one-on-one match, because now
Yeah.
I was just like, you're taking LA Knight out of the Rumble, you're taking Randy out of the Rumble, you're taking AJ out of the Rumble, and I hate to say this, but I feel like LA and AJ would have gotten bigger pops if they were in the men's Rumble compared to, being in this Fatal 4-Way, which it makes no sense. It is.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And you've botched the build up to it.
Yeah.
You've made it muddy and blah.
Everything that has happened the last 3 weeks, I feel like they needed to rearrange the order of how we got to this point better. Like, the contract signing should have happened 3 weeks ago. Then you try to have Randy versus Solo. Then you should have had the 3-on-2 match this week. And then you could do something for the go home. But I feel like everything is out of order.
Yeah, I think you're right. and this conspiracy hat brought to you by.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's just unfortunate that they kind of let it happen this way. I agree. I have nothing really to add, because you're right. I mean, it's sort of like, what are we doing? How are we? I don't know. And I don't remember the Rumbles in the past being this muddy coming up to it. Has this been a thing, or is this just, are we just hyper aware now?
I don't even think it's being hyper aware. I will say the 2022 Rumble was bad, but that's because everything that was happening was just a travesty. The 2022 Rumble was bad in the sense that it was boring, which I think is the worst thing that you can have for a Rumble. Again, I know a lot of stories get paused because Rumble involves pretty much the whole entire roster participating in it, outside if you have a championship match. But even then, sometimes you'll see those women in the matches compete in the Rumble, like a la Becky Lynch. I think last year she had a match and then she was also in the Rumble too. But yeah. I think what it is just that we at the Biconics, and this is putting us on blast a little bit, I feel that we look at the lens of what we watch on television as objectively as possible. And I will even stake the claim, I think that even though we're very pessimistic about certain things, I think we try to keep it as real as possible, whereas other folks, and I love them to death, there's a certain bias that they have to certain things, but I feel like they're also fair in their judgment. I think it's because we have watched enough wrestling over the years that we have watched enough to start to see patterns, and we can see through the cracks a little bit. Again, like I said, WWE, I feel like, caters to a casual audience, but us hardcore wrestling nerds have watched enough wrestling over the years. And just from our backgrounds, from writing to theater to everything, we can see through the curtain a little bit. And we're just picking up on these tired tropes that we see all the time.
I think it's one thing, I mean, to just jump to film, theater, TV, it's one thing to watch a show and go, I hate that character. I hate them. It's another thing to go, wow, that actor is really good at playing that character, right? And there's a disassociation there a little bit, and some folks don't want to admit it. I can loathe the character, but still go, wow, that performance is amazing. There's some folks that are just diehard fans of certain folks and bloodlines and plot lines and whatever, and they'll defend them no matter what. And we've talked about them here too. There's some folks that are just pure WWE cult. They can do no wrong. Everything they do is right. I see exactly what they're doing. Give them time. Apologists in a way. And they're also in AEW. There are Tony Khan folks that are like, Tony Khan can do no wrong, even though it's obvious their stuff not working. So it's unfortunate. And I think you're right. I think that nothing that we say is overt. Well, some of us are overtly pessimistic, but some of us are trying to be as real as we can and honest as we can when we see stuff that's been done too many times, or done better. It's like, why didn't you just do this better?
Again, we could totally see that this was the last minute change. And again, I feel that even though the build has been clunky, I feel like if you rearrange the sequence of events we have gotten so far, at least I would be like, okay, this was a last minute decision, but I can follow through real easily instead of being like SpongeBob trying to go all over the place to figure it out.
Sure, absolutely. How do we rate this thing? Do we even try to rate this thing?
I mean, we pretty much talked about our reasoning of the few things we liked, but we also critiqued a lot of this. I'm giving this like a 5 out of 10 Smackdown, only because it was a mess all over the place in terms of booking and just over bloatedness of promos that didn't need to be there. And honestly, I don't know what else you could possibly do for the Go Home show next week. I mean, next week we're getting Austin Theory and Carmelo Hayes as the rematch, which is fine, but it doesn't really play into the overarching narrative into the Rumble. I'm nervous to see what we do Bloodline and then Randy, AJ, LA Knight wise next week, because I feel like what else is there to do?
Kind of the same. I think this is a 4.5. I'm going under 5 because the women got hosed and that was awful. We got to do better. They should be doing way better to represent. Yeah, I agree. It was bloated. There were miscues. The performers did not want to be there, it felt like, which is a shame. Some of these things, I'll say that they wanted to be there, absolutely. The things they were being asked to do, I felt like they had this sort of, okay, why questioning about them, which is unfortunate. I don't know where we're going. We're trying to build to the Rumble, and I'm not excited, which is disappointing. Like, I'm not even sure how I feel about that. I'm like, oh, the Rumble's in a week. Nah. Okay. Like, I'm not fired up. There's nothing there that makes me go, yeah! Like, there's nothing that I really want to see. That's unfortunate. 4.5 on the Empanada out of 10 scale.
Yeah.
Which we use to replace the mini scale. It's a little more accurate. The mini scale is for broad things. This is very precise.
Yeah, so... well, Professor, even though this Smackdown was not what we wanted it to be, I still like being able to get together with you to review this.
Hey, it's great to get together and talk to you. And for all those fans of the Biconics who get to... If you needed to commiserate, we're here for you.
Right. So, again, even though we critiqued the heck a lot out of the Smackdown, you can see other reviews where there are some Smackdown reviews where we're a little more positive, so go check those out.
There were some good ones. Back in September, there were some great ones.
Check out the backlog that we have, as well as any other review you might be interested here on the Viconics YouTube channel. Follow us all over the social medias at BC WrestlePod. If you want to see us expand our content, help fund those by becoming a Patreon subscriber, where you can access to never-before-seen videos and exclusives. And then, of course, you can follow us on your favorite podcasting network, where, we're pretty much everywhere at this point. So if you can't dedicate time to watch our beautiful faces, let our faces for radio, so to speak, carry you through your day to, like, your drive to work. If you need something as background noise, like, we're good as white noise, if you will, too. So it's really, really good. Hopefully, and I think so far we're going to, the whole entire crew will be reunited. Still got to figure out when we're going to do it, but we got to cover the Go Home Smackdown before Royal Rumble.
Ooh. Oh my gosh.
Honestly, we'll probably just keep to the same schedule, and we will refrain from talking about what happened at the Rumble in our review, because we want to objectively just talk about the Rumble. So it's going to be very interesting, but the Go Home for Smackdown is next week. The whole crew, as of right now, will be all together. So me, myself, and Miniford will be together to...
That's perfect.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, too, because me and Minnie are covering the Raw Go Home show, too. And tomorrow should be interesting to see what happens with Rollins' title since he's injured. I don't know.
He's hurt. That was rough when I saw
the news. Is just like, oh, no, that's not great.
That's ugly.
That is. But for myself and the Professor and the rest of the Biconics boys, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and stay Biconic, you beautiful lads, lasses, and non-binary folks of the internet. We will see you for the Go Home show next week. But until then, see you later. Ta-ta for now.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's gonna happen next time? Well, you're gonna have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.